Hey everyone, I'm Jane, just your average 27-year-old. Life took a surprising turn for me a few years ago. This is my story, straightforward and real. It all began when I changed jobs and became an accountant at a new company. That's where I met Mark. He was the sales guy, confident, charming, with a smile that could sell anything. Our first encounter was in the break room over the office's finicky coffee machine. "Hey, you're the new accountant, right?" Mark said, leaning casually against the door frame with a smirk. "Guilty as charged. I'm Jane." "And you are?" I replied, trying to act cool but secretly curious. "I'm Mark, head of sales and the unofficial coffee machine expert," he said with a wink. We both laughed, and from that moment, we hit it off. Fast forward 2 years, and Mark planned the most romantic proposal. A weekend getaway to the beach, dinner at sunset, and then he got down on one knee. It was like a scene from a movie. I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was simply beautiful and filled with love. Time flew by quickly after our wedding. We began our married life in my grandpa's old house, a charming place full of history that I've always adored. A few weeks into settling down, Mark brought up a big idea. "Babe, have you ever considered taking a break from work? You know, being a housewife for a while?" Mark suggested one evening, his eyes hopeful. I was surprised. A housewife? "But Mark, I've always been passionate about my career," I replied, trying to hide my confusion. "I understand, Jane, but work has been going well for me. We can afford it. Imagine no more stress, just focusing on us, maybe starting a family soon," he said, reaching for my hand. His words were convincing, and I couldn't help but be swayed by his enthusiasm. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. Why not shake things up a bit, right? The first few weeks were exciting. I finally had time for gardening, reading, and trying new recipes. Mark would come home to a clean house and dinner on the table. We spent our evenings making plans and laughing. It felt like an extended honeymoon phase. But as time passed, I began to feel restless. I missed the challenges of my job and the satisfaction of solving complex problems. I even missed the annoying buzz of my office phone. Still, I brushed those feelings aside, telling myself it was just an adjustment period. Then things started to change subtly. Mark's compliments about the house or dinner turned into expectations. If dinner was late or the house wasn't perfectly tidy, he'd make comments that hurt more than I wanted to admit. I felt less like a partner and more like a live and maid. I called my best friend Laura to talk about it. "I feel like I'm losing a bit of myself, you know?" I confided in her. "You're a firecracker, Jane. Don't let this housewife gig douse your spark," Laura encouraged, her voice a mix of concern and support. Laura had a good point. I've always prided myself on being independent, making my own way. Now, I felt lost in a role I never imagined playing. After settling into this housewife routine, I thought I had everything figured out, but I was mistaken. One evening, Mark dropped a bombshell that turned everything upside down. He came home looking serious, which was unusual. "Jane, we need to talk," he began, not even taking off his coat. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. "It's my folks. Their apartment is getting renovated, and they need a place to crash for a couple of weeks," Mark said, avoiding eye contact. "A couple of weeks here, but—" "Yeah, it's just for a short while. It won't be that bad," he assured me. I sighed reluctantly. "Okay, but they need to respect our space, Mark." "Of course they will. Thanks, babe. You're the best." Fast forward a few days and Mark's parents, Bob and Linda, arrived. It was chaos. Bags, boxes, even furniture. They brought everything but the kitchen sink. "Jane, dear, make room. We've got a lot of stuff," Linda said, barging in with a box that seemed to contain her entire life. Bob followed, struggling with a huge armchair. "Hope you don't mind us bringing some comforts from home," he grunted as he squeezed it through the door. Our cozy home turned into a storage unit overnight. Everywhere I looked, there were their belongings. It was overwhelming to say the least, but that was just the beginning. Bob and Linda wasted no time settling in. Bob took over the TV, flipping channels like he owned the place. Linda started rearranging my kitchen. "Linda, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Oh, just organizing things a bit better, dear. You know how it is," she replied without even looking at me. I bit my tongue, reminding myself it was temporary, but inside, I was furious. This was my home, and they were treating it like their vacation house. Then came the dinner disaster. I made a healthy salad and grilled chicken, my usual fare, but Linda looked at her plate like I'd served her grass. "What's this rabbit food?" she scoffed, pushing the plate away. "Mom, come on." Jane worked hard on this. Mark tried to intervene. "It's fine, Mark. I can make something else," I said, though it was far from fine. No, let's order pizza. I need some real food," Bob chimed in, already reaching for his phone. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in my own home. Mark snored beside me, unaware of the turmoil inside me. I was doing all the hosting, cooking, and cleaning, only to be treated like an unpaid maid in my own house. My in-laws, Bob and Linda, had turned my house into their personal playground. Linda started taking over the kitchen like she was running a military operation. One morning, as I made my usual avocado toast, she marched in and made a face. "What are you eating, bird food?" she snorted, rummaging through the fridge. "It's avocado toast, Linda." "It's healthy," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Healthy Shmioff. You need some real food, girl." "Here, let me make you some eggs and bacon," she said, pushing me aside. I stood there fuming as she took over my breakfast. It was clear she didn't respect my choices or my space. Then there was Bob. He had turned our living room into his personal lounge. One evening, I wanted to watch my favorite show, but Bob was sprawled on the couch, watching some loud action movie. "Bob, do you mind if I watch my show? It's the season finale tonight," I asked, holding the remote. "No can do, Jane. I'm watching this." "Find something else to do," he replied without even looking my way. I couldn't believe it. Feeling like a stranger in my own living room, I stormed off. But the real kicker came a few days later. I found Linda rearranging my closet. "Linda, that's my personal stuff," I yelled, losing my temper. "Oh, relax, Jane. I'm just making some space for our things." "You've got too much junk here anyway," she said, tossing my clothes aside. That's when Mark walked in. "What's all the yelling about?" he asked. "Your mother is going through my things, that's what's wrong," I snapped. "Mom, maybe you should ask Jane before moving her stuff," Mark said, but his tone was half-hearted. Fine. I was just trying to help," Linda huffed, leaving the room. Mark turned to me. "Jane, can't you just let it go? They're just trying to fit in." "They're taking over, Mark. This is our home, not theirs," I said, my voice rising. Mark sighed. "Just bear with it a bit longer, okay?" I felt so alone in that moment. My home didn't feel like mine anymore, and it seemed like Mark was more on their side than mine. The situation in my house was already pretty tense, but what happened next really pushed me over the edge. One day, I noticed my bank card was missing. Panic mode kicked in. I tore the house apart looking for it, only to find it in the most unexpected place. Linda's purse. I confronted her immediately. "Linda, why do you have my bank card?" She just shrugged. "Oh, I needed to pick up a few things and didn't have cash on me. I didn't think it would be a big deal." "A big deal? You took my card without asking. That's stealing." I was fuming. Before I could say another word, Mark walked in. "What's all this shouting about?" he asked, looking at me then to his mother. "Your mom took my bank card and used it without my permission," I explained, holding up the card. He turned to Linda. "Mom, you should have asked first." Linda rolled her eyes. "I just needed a few groceries. It's not like I bought a diamond necklace." I couldn't believe my ears. "It's my money, Linda. You can't just take my things." That's when Mark dropped a bombshell. "Jane, let's not blow this out of proportion. You live off my money anyway. So what's the big deal if my mom uses it?" I was speechless. His words hit me like a slap in the face. "Your money. I can't believe you're saying this. It's our money, Mark, and our marriage." He just shrugged. "Whatever. It's not a big deal. She'll pay you back." I felt like I was in some bad dream. My husband was taking his mother's side over something so serious. A couple of weeks passed and the tension in the house became unbearable. I decided it was time to ask the big question. "So when are you two planning to move back to your apartment?" I asked Bob and Linda one evening at dinner. They just laughed. "Move back? Why would we do that?" Linda said, exchanging a look with Mark. "Yeah, we've decided to stay here. It's much nicer, and Mark doesn't want to waste money on rent for us," Bob added. I turned to Mark, looking for some sort of explanation. He avoided my eyes. "Yeah, Jane, it doesn't make sense to rent a place for them when we have space here," he said. I sat there stunned. My home, my sanctuary, was being overtaken. My husband, whom I thought was my partner, was now telling me his parents were here to stay. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. One day, I decided to go for a jog to clear my head, but luck wasn't on my side. I tripped and fell, and the pain was instant. I knew I had broken my leg. Hobbling back home was a nightmare. When I got back, I found Mark and his parents in the living room. "Mark, I think I broke my leg. I need to go to the hospital," I said, trying to keep the pain out of my voice. Mark looked up, annoyed. "What now, Jane? Can't you see we're busy here?" Linda chimed in. "Oh, stop being dramatic. It's probably just a sprain." "No, it really hurts. I need help," I insisted, feeling the room spin from the pain. Bob scoffed. "At your age, you shouldn't be running around like a teenager. Serves you right." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm in pain here. Can't any of you see that?" Mark finally got up, his expression more of inconvenience and concern. "Fine, I'll take you, but this better not be some ploy to get out of housework." At the hospital, it was confirmed, a broken leg. The next few weeks were hell. I was stuck at home on crutches, unable to do much. You'd think my husband and his parents would help, right? Wrong. They acted as if nothing had changed. I was still expected to cook and clean. One day, I was trying to make lunch, balancing on my crutches. Linda walked in and saw me struggling. "Can't you do that any faster?" "We're hungry," she said, not offering to help. "I'm doing the best I can on one leg," I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "Well, it's not good enough. You're being incredibly lazy," Linda retorted. That's when Mark walked in. "What's going on here?" he asked, looking at me then to his mother. "Your wife is taking forever to make lunch. It's like she's using her injury as an excuse," Linda complained. Mark sighed. "Jane, can't you just try a bit harder? We're all hungry here." I was in disbelief. "Try harder. I'm on crutches, Mark. What do you expect me to do?" He just shrugged and left the kitchen with his mom, leaving me there, seething and in pain. You won't believe what happened next in my in-law nightmare. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. A few weeks after my injury, Linda and Bob announced they were hosting Thanksgiving at our house and inviting their relatives over. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Thanksgiving, at our house. I asked incredulously, "How am I supposed to manage that with my leg like this?" Linda just waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you won't have to do much. Just stay out of the way and let us handle it," she said. I was fuming. "This is my house, Linda. You can't just invite people over without asking me." That's when Mark stepped in. "Jane, it's just a family gathering. Let's not make a big deal out of it." "A big deal, Mark? I can barely walk, and now your parents are taking over our house for a party," I said, my voice rising. Bob chimed in. "We thought it would be nice to have a family gathering here. After all, we're all living under the same roof now." And then Linda dropped another bombshell. "Actually, Jane, we were thinking it might be best if you stayed somewhere else for a couple of weeks with your leg and all. You'll just be in the way." I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. Stay somewhere else in my own house? "Yes, dear, just for a couple of weeks. It's for the best," Linda continued, as if she was doing me a favor. I felt my blood boiling. "You want me to leave my house so you can play host? That's insane." Mark chimed in, trying to sound reasonable. "Jane, it's just for a short while. It'll be easier for everyone." "Easier for everyone? This is my home, Mark. I'm not going anywhere," I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. Bob shrugged. "We thought you'd appreciate not having to deal with the stress of the holiday." That was it. I lost it. "Get out, both of you. Get out of my house now," I yelled, feeling a mix of rage and disbelief. Mark's face turned red. "Jane, you're being unreasonable. They're my parents. You can't just kick them out." "Unreasonable? They're taking over my home, and you're letting them." I practically screamed. Mark's expression hardened. "If you can't respect my parents, maybe we shouldn't be together. Is that what you want? A divorce?" I glared at him, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Without a word, I went to my desk drawer and pulled out a set of papers I had prepared just in case things went south. "What's this?" Mark asked, his voice faltering as he took the papers from my hand. "Divorce papers. I've had them ready for a while now," I said, my voice steady. Mark looked at me, then at the papers, and back at me. "You're serious? You'd really go through with this?" "Yes, I am. I won't be bullied in my own house, not by you, not by anyone," I said, feeling a strange sense of empowerment amidst the chaos. Linda and Bob just stood there speechless. Mark looked like he had been punched in the gut. The room was thick with tension. "Make your choice, Mark. Your parents or our marriage," I said, holding my ground. Mark laughed, a cold, hard sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Fine," he said, and to my shock, he signed the papers right there and then. "You'll regret this, Jane. You can't even support yourself without me," he said. I watched him, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. "I'll manage," I said, though my voice was barely a whisper. He shrugged. "You're lost then." He and his parents gathered their things and left just like that. My marriage was over. The moment the door closed behind them, I felt a strange sense of peace. I was alone, yes, but it was a better alternative to the constant tension and disrespect. The first thing I did was change the locks. It felt like I was securing my own personal fortress. Thanksgiving came around faster than I expected. I was still adjusting to my new reality, finding comfort in the quiet of my own company. Then, unexpectedly, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Mark, his parents, and a bunch of their relatives standing there, ready to celebrate. "What are you doing here?" I asked, stunned. "We're here for Thanksgiving, Jane. Did you think we were serious about not coming?" Mark said with a smug look. I couldn't believe the audacity. "You're not welcome here anymore, Mark. This is my house, and you're not my family, not after what you did." Linda piped up, "Oh, come on, Jane. Don't be so petty. Let's just have a nice dinner." I stood my ground. "No, you need to leave now." Mark laughed. "You can't kick us out. This was our family home." "Not anymore. I changed the locks, Mark. You gave up any right to this house when you signed those papers," I said, feeling a surge of empowerment. There was a moment of silence, then Mark's face turned red with anger. "Fine, have it your way," he said, and they all turned and left. After the Thanksgiving showdown, I started to rebuild my life. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy, but it was mine. A few weeks after Mark and his family left for good, I was sitting in my quiet, peaceful living room when my best friend Laura dropped by. "Hey Jane, how are you holding up?" Laura asked as she walked in, her eyes scanning the room. "Better than I expected, actually," I replied, offering her a smile. Laura sat down, looking at me closely. "You seem different, stronger somehow." I chuckled. "Yeah, I guess getting rid of dead weight does that to you." We both laughed, and in that moment, I felt lighter than I had in months. "But seriously, what's next for you, Jane?" Laura asked, her tone shifting to something more serious. I took a deep breath. "I'm going back to work. I've already started looking for accounting jobs. I'm not going to lie, it's a bit scary, but it's time to get back on my feet." Laura nodded. "That's the spirit. You were always the smartest one at the office. They'll be lucky to have you back." Her words meant a lot and gave me the boost I needed. I was ready to face the world again on my own terms. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of job interviews and getting my life back on track. I landed a great position at a local firm, and for the first time in a long while, I was excited about the future. My home was mine again. My life was mine again. I had faced the worst and come out stronger.